All right, hi, I'm Ken Blumberg, and today we're going to talk about Dave Ramsey's advice, and is it solid or is it a psyop? Because in my opinion, there's a lot of factors that Dave Ramsey is completely ignoring in his advice to young people and people that are thinking about buying a home today. And we want to talk about some of that information that Dave Ramsey seems to be omitting from his advice. So let's jump into this article about Dave Ramsey explains why now is a great time to buy a home. All right, it says the radio host, author Dave Ramsey believes buying a home now is a great idea. He recently spoke on the topic in an inclusive interview with the Street's editor-in-chief, Sarah Silverstein. Of course, it's inclusive. Key buzzwords being used there. So right there, that tells you there is a spin on the article, because the people that are using inclusive right now, it seems to me, they definitely have an agenda. Ramsey goes on to say, well, buying a new home right now, this is a great time to buy. Interest rates are up and the real estate market has slowed down, but it's still increasing. There's still a shortage of homes, so it's tough to find a really good home and a really good deal. So Dave Ramsey is feeding in to the frenzy that was caused after the pandemic, when the interest rates were reduced to zero and money was flooded into the market. But he never mentions any of that, which is concerning, that he doesn't talk about why home prices have gone up. And he also doesn't talk about any of the potential conditions why home prices might start to come down. But to his first point, he is right. Inventory is still tight. And we'll look at a quick article right here. May saw the lowest housing inventory in a decade. So the numbers of houses for sale in the United States fell 7.1% year over year to 1.4 million, and on a seasonally adjusted basis, according to a new report from Redfin. So again, the article is saying the lowest level since Redfin started tracking the metrics in 2012, according to the report. And as we can see on the chart, the inventory has fallen substantially since 2012, but it doesn't mention anything about 2006 and when the market completely collapsed and we had a massive gain in inventory, and then buyers were able to come in and buy those homes at historically low prices. And also the contrast that today's prices are historically high. Again, right before the Great Recession, we had home prices that were 6 times the median income of the average homeowner, and today they're at 8 times the average income of the average homeowner. So things have never been less affordable than they are right now, even though inventory is at an all-time low if you take Redfin at face value and look back just to 2012. So Ramsey never mentions anything about affordability, but as we can see when we go back to the article, but he says if you can find a deal right now, regardless of the interest rate, I want you to go ahead and buy now if you're out of debt and if you have emergency funds in place. And I ask you, who is out of debt in our society? Everything is designed to keep you in debt, to keep you enslaved to the system. Your school loans, the credit card balances that they allow you to ring up. Food is more expensive, gasoline is more expensive than it has ever been. So I ask you, who is out of debt? Even though in itself it's a good idea. I mean, if you can pool your money, if you can live with roommates, if you can live with family members, if you can figure out a way to reduce your expenses and get out of debt, that is actually great advice. But it's funny, he's just saying be out of debt, but he never mentions the system and how they enslave you and how debt has increased massively with the injection of liquidity in 2020 to the tune of about $9 trillion, 40% of the money supply. So the article goes on, Ramsey explains why he doesn't believe high interest rates should stop potential new homeowners from buying. If later interest rates come down, you're not stuck, he said. Just refinance and dump the old mortgage that had the 6 or 7% interest rate or wherever it lands right now. Again, super disingenuous. I just did another video talking about Jamie Dimon, a very, very well-connected banker at JP Morgan Chase, who says interest rates are potentially going up to 8%. And we know Dave Ramsey is putting the bait in front of the trap, but he's not being realistic because inflation is still going up, and the chances are that interest rates will continue to rise are very high if the Fed is earnestly trying to cool inflation like they say they are. Because as we know, we are still way above the targeted 2% inflation rate that the Fed says they want. And this is also very indicative of what happened in 2000 to 2006 before the great financial recession, where lenders told people, don't worry about it. Your home's going to continue to go up in value. So you can take an adjustable interest rate and don't worry about qualifying for the mortgage. Everybody was getting a loan if they could fog a mirror. And then they were like, hey, you can always refinance if your adjustable rate resets, or you can also just sell your home because prices are always going to go up. So again, in this article, Ramsey doesn't talk about the potential for prices to fall, all while jobless claims are starting to pile up. So let's take a look at this other article from Market Watch. Jobless claims hit highest level since late 2021. Are layoffs getting worse? The article goes on to say the numbers of Americans who applied for unemployment benefits last week was flat at 264,000, leaving at a nearly 2-year high and possibly signaling some decay in the U.S. labor market. So right here you see a chart from Market Watch going back to October 2022. You can see the average monthly jobless claims were about 200,000, and they have steadily risen over the past year and a half. And now they are hitting a peak. They're at an all-time high. The article does go on to say that a lot of these layoffs are in California, are in Connecticut and New Jersey, and that the job market is relatively strong in some other parts of the country. But again, this is part of the monetary cycle. The Fed is raising rates in order to crush demand, because again, their plan is never to create more abundance for you and me as Americans. Their plan is to cool the market by taking away your job and causing more general unemployment. So they want to raise the unemployment rate as inflation is sticky, it's stubborn. They told us it was transitory. Obviously, that is not true. So they most likely will continue to raise interest rates until they get a cooling inflation and more layoffs in the rest of the country. Because right now it's happening mainly, again, in those 3 states I just discussed. And that's in large part to the tech layoffs that are happening in mass, because they're trying to innovate. They're not shy about borrowing money from the tech layoffs that are happening in mass. But that's going to trickle over to the wider economy. But that's not something that Dave Ramsey is telling you about. And now back to Dave Ramsey. The personal finance professional also had a warning about selecting a house to purchase. The second thing is, don't buy too much house, Ramsey said. Don't get excited and go buy something that you can't afford, becoming house poor, using up all your disposable income with your house payment. I think that is actually good advice. Again, he omits so much in there, but then he tells you don't be house poor. But again, he doesn't also talk about the rising costs of living that are going up exponentially. Highest rate we've seen in over 40 years, probably more than that. But he does caution, hey, don't buy too much home. I think that's probably good advice. I think he should mention potential layoffs that are coming as well. But he sprinkles in a little nuggets of truth in there and omits a whole lot. But you tell me, what do you think? Do you think Dave Ramsey is a shill for the system just to push more people into debt, whether they are making a good financial decision at this time? Because personally, I think it's more important than ever to be knowledgeable and really see the landscape for what it is. And Dave Ramsey, in my opinion, is actually talking down to you by giving you such a limited perspective on buying your home. Specifically, Ramsey clarified how much a home buyer should budget when they are making a home decision. You don't want your payments to be more than 1/4 of your take-home pay on a 15-year mortgage. Again, this is kind of ridiculous. FHA allows people to take up 54% of their income. So he's saying 25%. So this is, again, it's good if somebody was able to come out of school with a very high-paying job, or maybe preferably not go to school. but has a skill that they've developed and they have a good income, or they have a very low living expenses right now and they were able to save up a lot of money so they can put a large down payment to keep their monthly payments at a quarter of their expenses or less. But for the vast majority of people, more than likely almost impossible to do before 2020. And now in 2023, it is a ridiculous ask for most people to be able to do this. But the other thing is, I think he's trying to set people up to tell them, get used to living in smaller quarters as they roll in 15-minute cities, as they try to condense the population, as they try to tackle climate change. He is getting you ready to accept a lower quality of lifestyle and a smaller place to live. But again, that's just my theory that he's part of the apparatus of the World Economic Forum and the great climate reset agenda that is being pushed on us heavily now. But what do you think? Is Dave Ramsey part of that, or is he just giving sound advice? Let me know in the comments. But let's move on and finish up this video. Ramsey then discussed the aspirational components of why buying a house can be a big step towards long-term wealth. If you're a home buyer, listen to me carefully, he urged. We've studied millionaires for decades. The typical millionaire and the first million to 5 millions of net worth they get is their paid off home. And you've got the opportunity to set yourself up to do that fairly quickly. So again, it's quite obvious to me that he's selling you the dream, right? He's just telling you, hey, you're gonna be rich. You're going to be rich. You should want to be a millionaire. That should be your goal in life, right? And that's what our financial system does. They sell us the dream, and then they bait us in as the rug is being pulled out from under us. Just like in 2006, it was the mad dash for cash to be the next home 5 million, 10 millionaire, and the rug was pulled out. But Ramsey is not mentioning that. He's not mentioning there's times to be careful and there's times to be aggressive. And one of those things is, if we are going to just allow the Federal Reserve to control us as they do, the saying goes, don't fight the Fed. Again, the Fed is trying to bring down inflation right now, and they are already starting to do it. And the chances are they are going to be persistent to get inflation down for numerous reasons. And that's why I think if you're going to buy a house, you need to be very cautious. In addition, you can look back at some of my other videos that I did. We talk about inventory rates for rentals are rising. Rents are falling faster than home prices are falling. So it's becoming cheaper to rent right now than it is to buy. Again, I believe in home ownership. I think it's extremely important. And I do urge you to prepare to buy a home. But I would be very, very cautious about jumping into something right now and taking Dave Ramsey's advice and see the writing on the wall when inaffordability at an all-time high, as the Fed is trying to crush demand and inflation, and all consumer goods have risen at the fastest rate in 40 years. Personally, I think there's a very, very strong possibility we're going to have a steep housing decline. So don't just be part of the herd that's being chased off the cliff to be sacrificed to Wall Street and the banking system. Do your own research. Make sure that you understand the entire macro picture and make sure you educate yourself. All right, guys, so that's it. I appreciate your time. Let me know what you think about the video. Like, comment, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me greatly, and I would really appreciate it. All right, so until next time, Ken Blumberg, your All-American Realtor, signing off, and I'll see you on the next video.